Heather, good morning.
Nope, I'm Heather. Jason, good morning.
I am just so delighted by that
Oh,
happened.
Lord.
How are you today?
I'm tired, but I'm here.
Yeah, it
So,
seems that way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. We had distance learning yesterday, which our district here builds in distance learning days,
how
and
how
it
often?
is like once a month. It is the worst,
Sounds
like the
dumb.
absolute living worst, and I hate it so much. I'm grateful that teachers get time to do the things they need to do, but it just triggers the distance learning days from the early pandemic days that I'm just like, I can't. It makes it hurts my heart to have to do it.
So,
So
do they not get days off? Like here in God's country,
yeah,
we get teacher in service days
right,
where students are not expected to do any learning. They're expected to
right.
get dumber on those days.
I know. I
And
truly wish that was the thing, but no, we do not. Our kids are expected to learn during these days. They have assignments.
wow.
They one of my children has been very neglectful and has not turned in their assignments. So we spent a lot of time yesterday going through and getting them up to speed, hopefully. So yeah,
So your son is having a hard time?
that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's tricky when you have two kids and you don't want to like throw them under the bus directly and you have to use
Yeah,
them. And then you're
yeah.
like, I'm not woke. I'm just trying to be sensitive. Oh no, now I sound woke again. Uh anyway.
Which isn't the worst thing in the world, but
Anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Heather, I'm sorry that you did that. Or the district did that to you. My kids are awesome and they don't ask me for any help anymore.
Oh,
So someday that will happen for you.
I know. One day
Unless I have to
we'll
buy them
get there.
stuff. Yesterday,
Yeah.
Jocelyn was like, I need to buy a pound. My daughter, Jocelyn, I need to buy a pound of powdered sugar for a recipe for chef class.
She's
Um,
taking chef class?
mhm.
Like
Yeah,
that's one of the classes at school
yeah,
or
yeah.
wow,
High school's awesome.
that's rad.
And yeah, so we went down there, and so she needed me to buy her powdered sugar. While we're there, she's like, I also need you to buy me a donut. So okay, it's a
This is
dollar.
also for chef class.
It was a dollar, and she was just super hungry. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then I bought some eggs, and I stopped at the bank to get a mortgage, and then um, as
You can't do that.
so yeah, so we bought all that stuff. Come home, and she's making frosting. This has nothing to do with Hobbit or anything, but she's
Sure.
making frosting, and she had to weigh it. The recipe didn't have cups; it had the weight, so she had to
Yes.
weigh it. So I have a scale, and she's weighing it, and it's hard to read the scale because
Under
it's
the
just
bowl.
old and well, yeah, and so it had one and then four zeros, and she couldn't see a decimal point,
Oh.
and so she's like, "Is this 1 pound or is this 10 pounds?" And I'm like, Jocelyn, we bought a 2 pound bag of powdered sugar. There's still powdered sugar in the bag.
So we know
What do
it's
you
not
think that
10.
means? That's not, it can't be 10. So, yeah.
Oh man. I think we
Anyway,
only have classes like animal husbandry and like prairie dressmaking or something like that here. But
once you start having animal husbandry, pretty soon, I mean, they're actually going to marry their animals.
I
So
know
it's a slippery slope. People
it
are like,
is.
Oklahoma, conservative values, but then like, why are you marrying horses? I read about that in the Bible.
Oh,
That's a no go.
Oklahoma. Love it here.
Speaking
Love it
about
here.
reading,
Yeah.
just like that, we
Let's get
read
to
The
this.
Hobbit, and we read chapter Roman
Eight.
numerals mess me up. Chapter 8, yes. Flies and spiders.
Yeah. I'm not gonna
So
lie, Jason. I kind of blacked out in this chapter due to my extreme arachnophobia.
okay, good.
Like I tried to read this as quickly as I could.
Mm-hmm.
which is hard to do when you're also taking notes
Right.
for like what's happening in this chapter.
But
So
but did it help you overcome your debilitating
no,
arachnophobia?
no, no.
Excellent.
The way that you are afraid of like yellow jackets and wasps and bees and stuff,
Those are demons from hell.
so are spiders. And
Okay.
spiders have 8 legs, and I'm sure they have 8 knives in each of their legs that are like, I'm gonna get you. And
I'm gonna get you.
I'm gonna get you. But I can't handle them. They're the most. Okay, we're good. We're good.
All right. I'm excited for you to watch this then.
There, no, I like, again, just to harken back to Harry Potter, I like have to look away when they get to Aragog's lair. Like I can't. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like it hurts to
That
even think
is
about it.
probably the creepiest thing in the whole series. The
Of Harry
Aragog's.
Potter or
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this. Yeah. The spider
Ugh.
stuff in Lord of the Rings is, I think, intentionally amped up
Ugh.
because spiders are
The
kind of gross.
worst,
Yeah.
the most horrific
But
things in the world.
but they eat the wasps and the hornets and the bees. So it's like they're kind of helping me.
I love bees though.
That's
Like
your
wasps and
problem.
hornets, like not my favorite, but bees, they're so cute. Like I love bees.
They kill my friends. Have you not seen My Girl?
Where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
I mean, if only the wet bandits knew that Macaulay Culkin was allergic to bees, they could
That
have
could have
filled
taken him
that
out
house
so
with
much
bees, and then
faster.
they could have stolen all this
Ugh.
stuff.
All right,
So, will
so
you
to
give us a
flies and
synopsis?
spiders. Sorry about that. Um, all right, so as we recall from the end of chapter 7, Gandalf was saying, like, stay on the path.
Mhm.
And when, it's like when a gun is introduced in a story, the gun is going to be used. We know that these children did not stay on the path. I know they are grown dwarves
They're
and hobbits,
old.
but they're
They're
children.
adults.
Excuse me, sorry. Um, so, Bilbo, or narrator, is explaining what they're seeing or not seeing in Mirkwood, as it is super dark. They
Mhm.
have like black squirrels there that they tried to hunt down, but they taste horrific. Here, sidebar, in Oklahoma, our squirrels are gigantic, like they've been on testosterone their entire lives, and they have yellow tummies instead of like the cute gray and white squirrels in Washington that are like, a cute little squirrel. These ones are like squeak, squeak. Like they're anyway. Um,
You've got some real feelings about the squirrels in Oklahoma.
they're gigantic, Jason.
Huh.
They are
Is it just because you don't have
huge.
trees to compare them to?
We have trees. We don't have big trees like we have in Washington. We have trees. But no, these squirrels are massive and like they're just burly. Anyway, so they hated the Mirkwood even more than the Goblin tunnels because it was dark and suffocating and blah blah blah. They eventually come to the stream that Beorn warned them do not drink from, do not like even bathe from, blah blah blah. And there's a boat on the other side of the stream, and Bilbo can see across, but nobody else can really, except I think Philly maybe is the one, or
Yeah.
Killy.
They're the youngest. Feely
Okay,
and Keely.
Feely. Okay. So then he sees it. He like throws a rope over to try to get it, and they eventually get the boat. Comes over to them, and they're like, "Okay, so who goes over first?" And so they say who's gonna go, and guess who's last?
Is it
Bombur.
Bombur? Yeah.
Bombur. Yeah. And he was like, "I'm always last. I don't like it. It's somebody else's turn." And Thorin was like, "Well, then you should not be so fat." And he was body shamed once again. And I just don't appreciate that.
I
But
I mean, Thorin just says it like it is.
you know what? I have been visited enough. um, Anyway, so then they all make it to the other side eventually using this boat, but then a deer comes and scares them, and they try to like shoot it, and with their arrows, their bows and arrows that Beorn gave them, and end up like hitting the deer, but then they see that Bombur in his fatness had fallen over into the water. And then like any other deer that they saw, like they tried to shoot them as well, but couldn't, and wasted all their arrows anyway. Right. So then they had to carry Bombur because he was asleep. The water made him fall into a deep sleep. And it was bad enough to carry like all of their things, but now they had to carry Bombur four at a time.
Yeah. He's a big dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so they're like walking through. They make Bilbo climb a tree to see how far they still had to go. And Bilbo saw some Black Emperor butterflies.
Right.
Do those come into play at all, or is this just
some cool butterflies?
Okay. Like I never know like what is important and what is just yay. Anyway, so Bilbo is
it's all yay.
Yes, right. All of it is yay. Bilbo is full of despair because from his vantage point, the trees just keep going, but it's just because they're at the bottom of a bowl of a valley. They were almost to the edge.
Yep. Oh, heartbreaking.
So close. So close. And then they ate all of the last bits of their food. Bombur wakes up and he's like, oh, there's no food. Oh, I'm just going to lie down here and
I was dreaming of food.
Starve. Yeah. I hope I never wake up. And then they start to see lights, and those lights though are off the path, and they're like, it can't be that bad, let's just go. So they go to the first little set of lights that they see, and it's a ring of elves, basically, like, you know, roasting some meat and having a great time. And as soon as they step into the ring of light, it goes away, like it just vanishes. And then they bumbled in the dark, forgot which way the path was, decides to just settle for the night when Dory saw more lights, and they were like, you know what, that first time it went so well, let's try it again. And so they get even further off the path to try to go into this next ring of lights. And as soon as Bilbo walks into it, it vanishes, and they couldn't find each other again. So they decide to just, you know, go to sleep once they did find each other. And Keeley says, oh my gosh, there are even more. And not having learned from, you know, fool me twice, shame on you idiots. They decide to venture even further to try to get in there again. And they were like, you know what? Let's just send Bilbo in. And they were plunged into darkness again and completely separated. So Bilbo decides to just like, you know, I'm just going to stay here and sleep. And in the morning, I'll figure out what's happening. He dreams of his home, and then eventually realizes he's being tied up by a giant spider.
Yeah.
And like, oh, cool. I think like the rope of the web like hit his left hand or something, and that's what woke him up.
Arguably the creepiest way to wake up.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty bad when your kid comes in to your room.
Just breathes on you.
Yeah. It's like right up in your face and whispers.
Can I watch cartoons?
But I think this would cause me to actually like
diarrhea yourself.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a nice way to say that, but anyway,
have a thunder boost out of your bootum.
Thunder boost out of my what?
Bootum. Yeah.
Did you mean to say bottom? But
no, I said what I said.
Did I stutter? He eventually wriggles free, like because he gets his sword out, and he cuts off the web from himself. And then he kills the spider with his sword, which is, of course, the only appropriate way to kill a spider.
Fire is
and
also
then,
good.
right, but if you're lacking fire and you have a sword, like
Yeah.
let's just
Okay.
use our resources.
Mhm.
And then he was like, all right, you know what is a good thing to do right now? I'm asleep. So he goes back to sleep and wakes up. The spider is still, curled up on its back next to him, still dead. And he's like, hey, sword that's been caked in black blood or whatever, I'm going to name you Sting. And so his sword now has a name, and he went to go look for the others. He has his ring on so that the spiders won't see him. And he looks up, and the spiders are in the trees, and there were the dwarves, all cocooned-ish or wrapped up in spider silk. Spiders were talking about the dwarves that they had just nabbed, and I thought it was interesting that we heard a little bit about Bilbo's hobbies, with his stone throwing capabilities.
Yeah, he's good at darts and stuff.
Yeah, but there's not enough time to tell everything. So
right.
Hopefully there's another book about that. And then so he starts throwing stones at the spiders and kills them straight up David and Goliath styles. And then he starts taunting them, sang a song, called them insults like Attercop and Tom Noddy. And that, woof.
No, nobody wants to be called Tom Noddy.
I was like, girl, do you know what you just did? And I don't know what either of those insults mean, but apparently
it's pretty rough, I guess. Yeah.
Pretty mean. Anyway, he managed to trick them, like by, running around, whatever. And he got back to the area where the dwarves were remaining, where the dwarves were, killed the one remaining spider guard, and then got most of the dwarves free before the spiders came back. Before Bombur, when he was just like cut down and went straight to the ground. But, he had enough like padding because he didn't get hurt.
I've heard he's pretty fat.
I've heard he is a large dwarf.
From several of my
rotund.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has a commanding presence.
In the movies?
No, just in that he commands a lot of space.
Okay. Awesome. Anyway, when the spiders came back, they were ready for a fight. Some had wrapped up Bombur again. They were dragging him away. And his Bilbo's sword seemed to be pretty happy about attacking the spiders. Like it was glowing and was like, yes, that's great. And so everybody but Bombur, or they thought everybody but Bombur, was all together again. And the fight began. Bilbo puts his ring on to disappear and draws the spiders away, told the dwarves to run the other way. Eventually the spiders gave up. They were ready, or they were able to then like rest near the elf fire rings. Bilbo explains the whole ring and Gollum thing to them, and they all started having more respect for Bilbo in that moment, as Gandalf said that they would, and they kind of looked to him as like their leader at that point. And they were like, what do we do now, buddy?
Things. We're dumb.
Yeah, we are clearly not as smart as you, so what is our next step? And as I can't remember who was drifting off, like talking about Bilbo, what a great guy. And then he's like, wait a minute, where's Thorin? And they realized at that moment that Thorin was gone, and had been gone pretty much that whole time, like since the first fire ring that they went into. And it turns out that he was carried off by the wood elves. They're not wicked. They are capital good people. But still, Thorin was their prisoner. They didn't think too highly of dwarves. They asked him why he tried to attack them. And he was like, we didn't try to attack you. We were coming to beg because we were starving. And he was like, okay, so where are the rest of your friends? He's like, probably in the woods, starving, and said starving a few more times. And then they asked what brought him to the woods in the first place, and he was silent. And they were like, cool, go to the dungeon till you're ready to tell the truth. And they gave him some meat and bread and water. And he was like, where are my friends? And that's it.
Yep.
Good synopsis?
Yes. That was great. Good
Perfect.
work. Yeah. So, I think this chapter is intentionally long
Hmm.
and intentionally creepy
Okay.
because Tolkien wanted us to feel like the dwarves. Like it's so long. This chapter is so long,
It
and
is really long.
not a lot happens. But Mirkwood is also this experience that is so long, and not a lot actually happens. And so I think he is trying to bore us into stupefaction with this chapter in particular, and get to a
Okay.
place where we're like, yeah, anything, get off the path, whatever. Yeah, I get it. You see some lights. You want to do something, anything other than read this chapter? Let's do that. This chapter is
let's
long.
let's do this. It
So,
is very long. It was like
um,
30 pages long, and I was like, this isn't necessary. But
was it 30 pages? 130 to 156. It was 26 pages long in my edition.
oh,
So,
well,
yeah,
in my
about
little
30. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the way he talks about the wood is also, it's so dark and
Hmm.
like you can't see anything, and looking up or looking around, like you only see just a few feet ahead of you. Like it's like claustrophobic
Yeah.
the way he
Yeah.
talks about it, which also, creates a tone and a mood that's just like, oh, everything about this is terrible. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and there was a lot of grumbling,
Yes.
like from everybody.
Right.
Um, and
Now,
even just the way that like they talked about keeping going on was like they trudged along. Like it wasn't nothing was light and airy about this chapter at all.
right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is interesting about Tolkien just is he is a veteran of World War One.
Hmm.
And World War One was, you read about the accounts of different soldiers. It's like they spent so much time doing nothing,
Yeah.
like in
Like in
trenches.
the foxhole like
Yeah.
trenches. Yeah.
And like waiting and like shooting at people and then taking a little bit of land. And there's like no real progress happening for a long time.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that in his life as well is like the way he talks about trudging and bumbling, and like everything's just taking forever and there seems to be no hope. Um, I feel like this chapter is informed by his experience
Hmm.
in the war. Just in like, you just keep going and you got nothing
Yeah.
else to do. And you kind of don't have enough resources, you don't have enough time, you don't have enough anything, and you see no light at the end of it. And
Wow.
so when Bilbo finally climbs the tree and he sees, like in the movie, like this is one of the things in the movie that I do actually really like is like there's so much light as he gets up, and like the sun is setting and it's
Right.
like beautiful. But then you're like, oh man,
But
you
now
have
I
to
have
go
to go
back
back down
down.
there.
It's like, oh, that's so hard. Um, so yeah. And then the water makes Bombur sleepy and all the different things. It's like, um, yeah, it's a intense, and it's an intense chapter that
Yeah.
not a lot happens. And so I don't feel like it ever gets unintense. I don't know if you feel that way.
No,
Like,
I can feel that because even like there was the one moment of like, oh, Bilbo, you're so clever with that ring and
yeah, but that's
beating
at the
Gollum and
end
all
of
of
the
that.
chapter.
That's at the end of the chapter, right? But then it just goes straight into talking about um, Thorin
Thorin. Yeah.
and like where he's found himself, which is still intense, even though like it says again, capital good people about the wood elves
Mm-hmm.
that like he's still a prisoner and he's in a dungeon and it's still intense, even though like most of the quote unquote danger for the rest of the party is over,
Right.
at
Well, they
least
don't
in the
know actually
chapter. Yeah,
because they're still they're off
in
the trail.
Mirkwood. Right.
So they
Ugh.
don't, you leave this chapter like they don't really know what they're going to do. So other than we should probably just go to sleep right now.
Yeah, that
So,
seems to be their answer for everything.
I do think a good nap really clears up a lot of stuff, like the rest
Sure.
of your schedule for the day. Uh, yeah. So the spiders. Let's talk about the elves and the fires.
So
Um,
were the elves, they said that there was like a hunting party. Like it sounded
mhm.
like a hunting party. So it was the elves that were hunting the deer and then
Yeah, probably, and then
okay.
celebrating. Like they
Hmm.
were having some kind of a celebration
Right.
after their party, right? And so they have no fear of anything. They know the wood really
Hmm.
well, and so they're just doing their thing. But they also are very suspicious of any outsider.
Right.
These elves in particular, and so the lights go away really quick. And so, yeah, that is one of the really frustrating things about this chapter too. Is like there's these little moments of like, oh, there's some hope. Maybe these people can help, and they
Right.
don't want to help.
No.
And so,
This is
jerks.
our fire, our meat,
Yeah.
our celebration. So get
Yes.
yourselves out of here.
But then at the end when we learn more about these elves, there's uh Thorin's in the dungeon, and so the cave were so to the cave they dragged Thorin not too gently, for they did not love dwarves. And though he
Right.
then thought he was an enemy. In ancient days, they had wars with some of the dwarves, whom they accused of stealing their treasure. It was only fair to say that the dwarves gave a different account. It said that they could only took what was their due, for the Elf King had bargained with them to shape his raw gold and silver, and afterwards refused to give them their pay. And if this Elf King had a weakness, it was for treasure, especially for silver and white gems. And though his hoard was rich, he was ever eager for more, since he had not yet a great treasure as other elf lords of old. And so these elves are very suspicious of dwarves because of back pay,
Because of
right?
back pay.
Yeah, the dwarves are like, you owe us money. We did work for you, because elves don't generally do like the smithing type work.
Okay.
Like they have this, they make weapons, they do these things, but like doing like the work of like crafting ore and all this different kind of stuff, that's
Hmm.
dwarf work, right? And so
Right.
like, hey, we'll pay you to do these things, and they didn't pay him. And then so this king in particular in the Hobbit, he's not named, but in the larger lore of everything, he's Thendruil, and he is a pretentious and envious elf lord. So he's not as great as like Elrond. Elrond is a pretty big deal.
And is
Thendruil,
like an even keeled, like
yeah, generally,
nice-ish dude.
yeah, he's generally good. Thendruil is he's envious, and this description of him like loving treasure and all this different kind of stuff is he's not as good. And so sometimes people like elevate elves in these stories and say like the elves are all good and noble, and it's like, well, they're not like perfect. So here's one.
Okay.
Here Elrond is great. People are like, Elrond, you are an honorable dude.
Yeah.
And Galadriel and Celeborn and all these other elves that we'll meet over time, they're great. But Thandriel, mm, he's a turd. And so yeah, so that this is Thandriel, and he's just a turd. But the way they describe him, like loving treasure and all this stuff, is not unlike the dwarves themselves. Like they want
Sure.
to go and
And
get
get their
treasure,
treasure back.
right? And who else has their treasure? The dragon, right?
Right.
And so there's all of this like concern for treasure, like having this confrontation right here. And so when they say like, why did you come in the wood in the first place? Thorin is like, I'm not
I'm not going to
telling you
tell you.
anything about any treasure that I'm going to go look for.
It's
So
definitely not to get my money.
yeah, it's because I got into the wood because I'm starving.
Right.
So, but I do love the way he talks to the king in the interrogations, like you pointed out. Well, we were too busy starving.
Yeah.
What did you do? We came begging. We didn't attack you. We begged because we are starving. Where are your people? Probably starving. Yeah, I do love Thorin's like just like not lying,
Right.
but not being nice.
Right.
You know, so
Just being very what is the word? Blunt?
direct. Yeah,
Direct? Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
practicing assertiveness.
Oh, yes, that is
Yeah.
true.
Uh, yeah. So and then the way they talk about the wood elves as well, like they love the woods, they love the sun, the moon, all this stuff, and kind of the stars, all that stuff. It makes them seem like very nice, but at the same time, they're like, we don't trust anybody.
Right.
So, uh, yeah. And then let's talk about the spiders. They're your favorite part.
I gosh. Can I
Uh,
ask first,
yes.
when did um like the world start using the metric system? Because he said the boat was 12 yards away and
Yeah.
he's
I don't know.
English and like wouldn't have been like meters
Do
or
you know why? Do you know where we got these terms? Do you know what?
no
Do you know what our measurement system is called?
standard?
Imperial.
Oh, imperial.
Do you know what the
Oh,
imperial came from? It's British.
British.
Our
So
whole
then why does
system,
everybody now use metric except for us?
because we are in charge. No, I don't know. I think
Oh
everyone
Lord.
else is like, we're fine with math and easy division. And America's like, we've never been good at division. We had a war about it. Uh, so
Night. Oh my gosh.
yeah, we want to make this division as hard as possible. So factors of 10 pass.
Pass.
Yeah, I don't know, but the imperial system came from the guy who wrote this, his people. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know when they switched over to metric. Probably when they were like, what if freezing was 0? Wouldn't that make life easier?
Would have.
Maybe.
Would have.
We'll never know.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. So, but the
Sorry, the spiders.
how would using metric have been any helpful in this world?
I just thought it was interesting that like he didn't say like meters instead. Like everything is very much just like Americanized, or I
Yeah,
guess
imperial.
Britishized,
Yeah.
imperialized.
Yeah. So we should blame the British for a lot of things.
I mean, I do, but
Canada. Uh
hey, my husband is Canadian. Thank you very much.
yeah, well. Um but it would have been more weird if he
That's
said
true.
the boat was 12 meters away. Because
Okay,
what
fine.
a yard at least sounds made up,
Uh,
right? You know how big that is? It's 14 dishwashers big. But yeah. So the spiders, super creepy, right?
Spiders. I hate them.
The way he
We
describes
hate them.
their hairy legs
Oh
and
my
their fat
gosh.
bodies and all the
I
different things. It's so good. He does a great job of describing the creepiness of it all. The when Bilbo kills the first spider, and it says he felt a different person and much fiercer and bolder in spite of an empty stomach. And he wiped his sword on the grass and put it back in its sheath. I will give you a name, he said to it, and I shall call you Sting. Will you remember me? So that's the Fields of Bali.
Yeah. It's Bali.
Yes. The song is called Fields of Gold. But
I legitimately thought it was barley. Like I've
oh, maybe it is barley.
thought the lyrics
I thought it
are
was
they
barley. Maybe it's barley. I
oh
don't know. I
no.
hate that song. That song played all the time when I was at the orthodontist, and so like for the longest time, I thought I hate Sting, and
But Sting is kind of great.
Sting is great. There's other songs, but I still hate that song. Are you looking up the lyrics right now? Is it?
Yeah.
It but it does make sense if it's barley,
I
fields of
mean that
gold,
would it
but
is the fields of barley. Okay.
got
You'll
me.
remember me when the west wind moves upon the fields of barley.
I was wondering, like, why is he in Indonesia?
What?
Uh, Huh.
Oh
Hmm.
my gosh. Okay.
I hate that song. It's the worst. It makes my teeth hurt because
I can completely understand that. But do you like his version of like the Three Ships song at Christmas? Saw three ships come sailing in a
no,
crystal sail.
I don't really like any version of that song.
Oh,
Even the originals. They're all who cares about the three ships? What are the
apparently
I don't know.
somebody did. There was a song about them.
There's a lot of songs about a lot of stuff. Anyway, there's a song about spiders in this chapter. Do you care about that
Yeah,
song? No.
no, I don't.
Yeah. But I just am saying, like, I just love how creepy he describes the spiders. There he
Mhm.
does a really good job
He does
of
a
just
great job.
describing the creepy spiders. And the songs Attercop, I think that is actually a way to talk about spiders in some other language. And so here's just Tolkien just philologizing things. It's like, look at all the words I know.
I'm gonna look that up really quick too.
Okay. And
Attercop.
while you're doing that, I do also like that they're like talking about the way that they should cook and eat the dwarves, which is also like what the trolls did. Like, how should we eat them? Let's just squash them. And then Gandalf was like, you can't do that. You gotta be better at cooking them. So anyway, did you look it up? Attercop?
Yeah. The word is Old English from adder, poison, and cop, the head. Cop or coppa was also used by itself to mean a spider, so cobweb ought to really be spelled copweb. The name was given to spiders in the mistaken belief that they were all poisonous to humans. So there we go. And then Tom Noddy is given as a foolish or stupid person. So these were really mean things that they were saying.
Yeah, Bilbo is just slandering
Wow.
them.
What a
Um,
jerk.
yeah, it's fine. He kills them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Really quick,
Hmm.
I
Has any of this
in
been really
my
quick?
no, none of it.
Okay.
But in my haste to get through this chapter,
Hmm.
when I first read that he like when he says like I will give you a name, I thought he was naming the dead spider Stig.
I didn't know your name, so now, alas, Yorick, I knew him well.
So
Alas,
like
Sting, I killed you good.
killed it real good.
You really thought he was naming the spider.
I did. I
Like, that's
did.
just a Hobbit like tradition. When we murder something, we name it.
Yes. We name it. If we don't know its name, in order
Hmm.
to give it a proper like send off, we must name
Yeah,
it.
makes
Lest
perfect sense.
yeah.
As much as Fields
So
of Bali.
as
So,
much okay, so we were both wrong in things.
yeah, we've both made some mistakes.
Good Lord. Anyway, it took like
Barley. Huh.
I had to like stop reading and be like, wait a minute. I thought he named the spider Sting. And I had to go back and reread that section. It was like, ah, oh, dang it, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you came to that realization.
Yeah, on my
Uh,
own.
yeah. So that would have been funny if he came in here. Then he named a spider Sting. Weird,
Yeah,
right?
that's so bizarre. Did he take part of the spider with him and like start killing the others because it's Sting? But no, it was the sword.
That is a
So
weird thing
sorry.
you just did. Yeah. So yeah, it's a weird chapter.
Yeah,
I think it does a good job setting up for the next one. We're like, oh, what's going to happen with Thorin and these elves?
right.
Yeah. So it's going to
And this
be
is
fun.
a much shorter chapter too. This
The
next
next
one.
chapter,
Yeah.
is it? Barrels out of
Yes.
bond.
Yes.
A
My
warm welcome. Okay. Yeah.
like, do we try to tackle two chapters next or
Well, that
just
would
keep
be
it as
30
one?
pages
Oh,
in my
and it'll be
copy.
similar. Okay.
I would be fine trying to do two chapters next week to do chapter 9 and 10.
You want to do it?
I'm fine with that.
You know what happens in these two chapters. So is it worth trying to combine? I think is what
Yeah, sure.
let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's
Let's
make it
do
happen.
it.
It's gonna be
Oh my
great. It's gonna be
gosh.
fine.
It's
No problem.
so
All the best chapters. Yeah, it'll be fun.
okay.
So, all
Just
right.
writing
Well,
down my homework for next week.
perfect. Listener, if you are also following along chapter by chapter, remember we're doing two chapters next week, and
Dose.
we anticipate a full report. But
From
if you do
me.
want to send in a report, you can email that to hobbitforming@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this, wow, let people know about it. You can post it
Wow.
on the review on something. You can share it with your friends.
Mhm.
If you have people you know hate spiders, and you can just want to like zoom it on YouTube to that exact moment where we start
Oh,
talking about spiders, do that. It'd be fun.
ugh.
Uh,
I would.
and
Oh no.
if you can leave a comment on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to comment, like, subscribe, ring that bell, shamalama ding dong, ooh ee, ooh ah ah. I don't know all the words. Um,
Jane, Jane, bada bada bing bong. I think
what's that from?
doesn't
Is that
matter.
from Greece? I've never seen
Uh,
Greece.
no, that is, I think, from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No,
No,
no. Come on.
why don't you look it up?
I can't. My keyboard's too loud. It makes a lot of clicky noises.
Does mine when I'm looking it up? I'm sorry if it
No, I
does.
can't hear your keyboard at all. But maybe Zoom does a
Okay,
like good keyboard filter. Are you looking
let's
up? How do you
see.
even spell
Yeah,
any of those things?
it's Witch Doctor. What? I don't think it's from. I don't think. I think there is something similar in Greece, but
Oh,
the
okay.
the song is called Witch Doctor, and it's by the cartoons. What?
Okay. Well, listener,
Yeah,
if you also have weird songs, send them to us. Hobbitforming@gmail.com or hobbitformingpod on Instagram and threads and stuff. Did you have something, Heather?
I would have one question for anybody that has been listening that follows our page. Are you also getting an inordinate amount of Lord of the Rings things that come up in your feed every day? And you're like, oh, this doesn't make sense to me yet. And it then just fall into a rabbit hole because I
Yeah.
do. I learned about Galadriel. Is that the
Oh,
name?
Galadriel. Yeah. Uh,
Little bit about her. So,
Galadriel is wonderful. Her
okay.
character is excellent.
Who plays
And
her?
uh Kate Blanchett.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's Galadriel in the movie. In the Rings of Power, which happens before all of this on Amazon, that series.
Oh, okay.
It's a different actor. She's also great. I loved it. But yeah, Gimli, a dwarf in the Fellowship. Uh yeah, his interactions with Galadriel, it's just so just it's one of those things that just hits me right in the heart. It's about transformation. It's about laying aside your biases and anger and recognizing that there's good in the world.
Oh,
And
interessante.
yeah, I just there are things in Lord of the Rings that bring weird emotions into my face, and like things leak out of my eyeballs, and it's feelings.
It's
And towards
feelings.
yeah, and towards the end of the series, when a person looks at other people and it says you bow to no man. I mean, I lose it every time. And then when another person is doing an awesome thing and they're like, no man can kill me, and this person says I am no man and kills them, it's so good. That's
Wow.
much later though. I mean, like there's good things. There are good things, Heather. You've got to endure the spiders to get to the glory. I'm gonna get my
Do the
preach on.
spiders come back? Like, is this the
Uh
last we hear of them? Or am I going to need
yes,
to,
of
in
these
this book?
spiders. There's another spider later
Why?
because they're creepy as
I
all
hate
get out.
them. I hate
They're
them so
yeah,
much.
Shelob is the other spider later.
Of course, it's Sheila. What
Yeah,
a
she's
name.
terrible. And again, Shelob is daughter of Ungoliant, and these spiders are also probably
I think it's
descendants
pronounced
of
umlaut, but okay.
these spiders are also probably descendants of Ungoliant in some way. So, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's just more fun to say Ungoliant, like in Parks and Rec when John Hodgman's character like Nabutu. So
I don't remember that.
with the public radio, Pawnee Public Radio, when I'm Derry Nurbles, this is Thoughts for Your Thoughts, and I'm Augustus
Oh, yes.
Ngutu Clementine.
Yes,
So
yes. All right, now I remember
anyway,
that.
we should
But
go.
all
We should
right.
stop
Yep.
this nonsense. So, listener, thank you. If you are watching, this is one of the reasons why you should watch on YouTube. my my sister has tiny hands. It's something we don't really bring up very much.
Real
But
tiny.
I mean, they are definitely a problem. So anyway, bye everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.